So if you're looking at possibly hiring a private investigative agency or getting services of a private investigative agency, it's very likely that this is your first time ever dealing with a private investigator. And a lot of times the question comes up, what is it? What can an investigator do? How does it work? How do I hire an investigator? And we're going to talk about some things that might be helpful to understand as you're engaging with a private investigator that'll make the process easier, know what options you have, know what powers you have, and know what things are not possible. First of all, a private investigator is a licensed business that is able to perform certain activities that only can be done by a licensed person or corporation. And almost every state has a list of the activities that you have to have a license to do. Things like asset research, things like surveillance, sometimes witness interviews. And those things can only be done by a licensed agency. If somebody does those activities without a license, first of all, the results you can't use in any kind of legal proceeding, and you actually might even get into trouble by having somebody that's not licensed do these things for you if it causes harm to a third party. You want to get good legal advice anytime you're considering anything with a private investigator. You also want to make sure that the investigator is performing these activities in a legal manner. There's lots of things that can be done in a way that's legal, but sometimes people will take shortcuts and do things illegally. For example, you can't tap somebody's phone. It's against the law. There's ways to get the information from a person that might be a little harder, might take longer, might cost a little more money. But if your investigator just taps a phone illegally or slaps a GPS on somebody's car, you can get into trouble and you can get legal liability attached to you because your investigator did something wrong. You also want to make sure that your investigator has experience in the area of investigation that you need. Not every investigator does everything. For example, we talked about surveillance. Surveillance is one of the most common things that people hear about when it comes to a private investigator. Our firm does not do surveillance. We only do asset search, fraud investigations, embezzlement, corporate fraud. And if you're looking for surveillance, just because somebody is a private investigator doesn't mean that they do surveillance, or if they do, it doesn't mean they're any good at it. Part of the reason we don't do it is because that's not our expertise. Just like if you're hiring a lawyer, you don't want to hire a divorce lawyer if you've been arrested for DUI and you need a criminal lawyer. You want to make sure that your investigator matches your needs. Asset searching is one of the most common types of investigations that are asked for in general. Also, you want to make sure that the investigator ideally is a company. You don't want to hire just an individual Joe Schmo investigator because they may not have other resources within their firm that they can connect to help your case. When you're hiring an investigator, don't be shy about asking questions. You probably have a lot of questions about what can be done, what can't be done. Tell your investigator what you're looking to accomplish, and they'll help you understand, first of all, can it be done? Number two, what's the best way to do it that will be the cheapest, that'll get you good results. The last thing to understand with an investigator doesn't prove anything. They collect records that support a conclusion, but the proof comes from the interpretation, whether it's in a court of law, by an attorney, or even by you. Investigator doesn't necessarily decide in court what is true or not true. They just present evidence so your attorney or even yourself can come to a conclusion on your own. For example, if you're hiring an investigator to find out if a spouse is cheating on you, right? They're going to show you evidence that shows that it might be the case, and they might even say it looks like they're cheating on you, but the determination of what's happening is going to be yours to make based on the evidence. And if it's in a court of law, then the judge or the jury has to decide if that evidence meets those standards. For that reason, another very valuable reason that you want to hire an investigator that has experience in that area, because at some point, if you go to court and your investigator is called into court to testify as a witness, if the other side of the case can prove that your investigator has no experience in that area, they can throw that evidence out of court. Every time we've testified in court, the first thing that the other side does is to try to prove that we're not qualified as an expert witness. And our client, usually an attorney, will present evidence, all our credentials, all our licenses, and the judge decides, yes, this person is an expert witness, they're allowed to testify. It's not automatic. If you don't have an investigator who has experience and knowledge and credentials in a certain area, a smart attorney on the other side will have all the evidence thrown out by saying this person's not qualified to be an expert. And we've been certified as an expert witness in all kind of courts, federal, state, local, and it's a process. The process of getting certified as an expert witness is not easy, because the other side's going to fight back because they don't want your evidence to be heard in court. So it's important to make sure they're licensed, but also experienced in that area of law. Hopefully that answers some questions about hiring a private investigator. If you have more questions, you can reach us. You can also arrange a consultation with a licensed investigator, and we'd be glad to be of assistance with your case.